All right. I call the meeting to order. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Trustee Lewis.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
You're welcome.
Good news, Mr. Hilderly.
We have a good news item listed. We were notified by a parent that her son, Dylan Cunningham, sophomore at the high school, right?
Nice kid.
Recently participated in a dance competition and was named Mr. Dance of Michigan for 2022. They were invited to the meeting. Unfortunately, I don't see them here this evening.
His parents are both graduates.
Both graduates, and we were, very excited to invite them, and they accepted the invitation. So
Derek.
I don't know where they ended up, but congratulations to Dylan Cunningham, Tecumseh High School 10th grader on that accomplishment.
Is there a video or?
We were provided a photograph. I can forward. to
I
the
can
board.
show that to you. I have it.
Yeah, send it to us.
They put it on Facebook, and it looked like quite an athletic
video?
competition.
A video?
Yeah,
He
there's
was one
one
of the leads in the Nutcracker.
Hmm?
He was one of the leads in the Nutcracker.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, maybe you can make next meeting. We
Right.
can give it an
yeah,
official
we'll reach out and try to
applause.
have him back again for a
A
handshake.
little hip dance something.
There you go.
So,
Yeah,
all
you
right.
can show us some moves.
Mr. Lewis,
All right, thanks, Rick. Next on the agenda, public comment only on agenda items. So is there any agenda items that anyone here would like to make a comment on? Nope, okay. Agenda. I don't know of any revisions on the agenda. Does anybody have anything, the change or addition that we need to take care of?
Support.
Been moved and seconded to accept the agenda as published. Roll call vote, trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee Lewis.
Aye.
Trustee Moore.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Tomlin.
aye.
Chair votes aye, the agenda is approved. Schedule reports. First semester data review.
This is being presented by, as you see on the agenda, M. Way and the building principals. That is not a band from the 70s. Could be. Mrs. Way will kind of give a general overview and then her own building, or grade level information. And then we've got some follow-up from the 5.8 and 9.12 review.
Yes, so in your packet, the first page of this report is just an explanation of the requirements that we have this year. So with some of the ESSER money that we've gotten for the Relief Act, we are required to administer a benchmark assessment this year for all K through 8 students in the areas of reading and math. So and then we're supposed to report to you guys at the mid-year and then also at the end of the year about how that's going and the growth that we're making. So currently, right now, we actually have 2 different assessments. We have an assessment that's K4, and then we have an assessment that is 5.8. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So really, it's just a bunch of numbers for you there. If you look at the first page of where the numbers start, we did have to write some goals this year. So our goal for the mid-year right now is that 50% of our K-8 students will make growth in reading and math. And then for the high school, the goal was more based on achievement. So the students they'll be making achievement in their grade level standards. So Mr. Niles will talk a little bit about that. So for the middle of the year, 50% was our goal. And for the end of the year, it's 75%. So as you can see, we definitely exceeded that 50% goal at the mid-year. Most of our growth was seen in the 80 percentile there. So reading and math. So we were very, very pleased. We met the goal for all grade levels, K through 8. I'm very excited about that. And in fact, met most of them for the end of the year goal. So we're super excited about that. But also part of this, you'll see that we had to break it down into what we call subgroups. So we have to look at some of our populations to make sure that the growth is equitable, that not certain groups are growing more than others, or there's any discrepancies there. But with that, we do have more subgroups, but if there were less than 30 students in a subgroup, we don't report on that because it's too identifiable. Then you're getting into knowing who those particular students are. Let's say there's only 5 students in a subgroup. In a district this size, you might know who those 5 students are, so the data gets a little bit too identifiable. So the subgroups we looked at were economically disadvantaged, special education, female versus male, our Hispanic Latino population, 2 or more races, and our white Caucasian population. So as you can see, there wasn't anything that really stood out that one group was either performing better or worse than their peers. So we were glad to see that as well. And then we don't, as far as the virtual, we do have less than 30 virtual students in our TBA K-8. We're very close to 30 students, but it is less than 30 students. And they're actually just starting their mid-year assessment right now. So I'd be happy to share that board or that information with the board once we have that, but it technically is less than that 30 student threshold. And then the next couple pages there before Mr. Niles gets into the high school report are just some diagnostic results, just a little bit more of a breakdown of our data. So this report, that the first couple pages is about growth, but the graphs and charts from iReady and from FastBridge is more about that benchmark. So how are students performing compared to where they're supposed to be for this time of the year? So that's broken down in there for you as well. And then Dennis, did you want to share a
Well,
little bit?
Can we ask questions about, should we do it right now?
Yep.
Go ahead.
My question is, do the parents get a copy of this assessment for their part of their parent-teacher conferences
Yep.
or a chance to review it?
Yes, and that is a requirement of the section 98B as
Okay,
well,
just
that
like
parents have to get that
Okay,
information.
good.
So I know at the elementary level, we share that at conferences because we want it to be a conversation instead of just sending it home. So we're just finishing up these assessments right now. Conferences are coming up in about 2 weeks, so 2 or 3 weeks. So we will share their growth at that time.
So it's K through 4. These tests we're just taking now, or are they taking in November?
We took the first benchmark assessment within the first 4 weeks of school, and then we just took this one. We still have students who are.
So the data we're seeing here is from which one?
This is from this round, but it also has comparative data underneath of it. So like if you,
Right.
so it shows where we were at in the fall, which would have been the first couple of weeks of September. And then we, like I said, we still have students who are taking the test today. We're just right at the end of the assessment window.
So, I mean, just, I spent not a lot of time, but certainly some time looking at this. It seems like on math, we're kind of a little bit behind.
Math started out a little bit lower, which it's for the elementary level, that's not atypical. We have a lot of support we give students in reading. We have reading specialists in all the buildings. We have reading coaches in all of our buildings. Math support is, we have a little bit less. We have math coaches at the 3-4 buildings, but we don't at the ELCs. So that's not atypical to see that just a little bit lower.
What would you expect, so that if you look at the yellow, which is the one grade below, would you expect a student at this stage of their, whatever, first, second, third grade, to be at early on the grade level, right? You wouldn't expect them to be behind 1 year.
Right, no. You would hope that there are some that are behind a year or more, which is, we see that. That's not, atypical. But yes, we would definitely want to see them in the yellow or the green. What the yellow and the green tells us is that they're ready for their grade level content expectations. They're ready as a second grader to learn second grade content. If there's yellow, that means they probably have a few gaps that we need to fill in, a few areas that need some growth. But overall, they're ready to be learning those grade level standards.
And the fourth grade was worse, right?
In math?
Yeah.
Yeah, their percentage was a little bit lower, but they also started out kind of low as well. Math did start out a little bit lower. It's alarming when you see the green only at like 17% at the beginning of the year. But again, that means like if a second grader had or a fourth grader had a green score, that means everything that they're doing and are capable of are in that grade level. If they're yellow, they still have some things from the previous grade level that they need to fill in a little bit.
So is there a special strategy that's developed when you see these numbers?
Yeah, so the great thing about these assessments is that they really dig deep into what the gaps are. So I can pull up any particular student and it will show me exactly what skills that they need to work on. There's lesson plans that accompany it, so teachers can print lesson plans for groups of students. It groups them. It groups students by what Michigan standards that they are a little bit lower in. It also, we have an individualized reading and math path, what we call it. It's called the iReady path. So once they take the assessment, the individual work that they do on their tablets is designed to meet those areas that they need growth in. So they're going to get lessons that are particularly designed for them based on their data. So the data is a really great, we find a lot of great use for it. We have some more training coming up next week on our next PD day from our assessment reps, and they're going to help us dive even deeper into this assessment because it is a new one for us this year. So we're still learning a lot about it.
I have another
I
question.
would say, sorry, I don't mean to hog out the question, but let me just finish,
Okay.
okay? So we have a new curriculum, right?
Mhm.
And it starts at what grade?
We have a new math curriculum in kindergarten. Through
So it starts at
12th grade.
kindergarten. That's one we purchased. So,
Yes.
do we, sometimes I ask a lot of questions, right? I mean, I hope I know the answer to this question. I mean, do you think this had, the fact that we didn't have that curriculum had anything to do with our scores? Or will that help us? I mean, does it allow us? It seems like when I reviewed that, the teachers had the ability to do specific, assign specific tasks. Are they doing that?
Yes.
Are they implementing that?
Yep, they are. That path that I was just referring to is all individualized because we know coming from the last couple of years and how kids have been in and out of school that there are gaps in learning. Even if a student misses 2 weeks of instruction due to being quarantined, they're missing 2 weeks of instruction, right? So there's going to be those gaps, and we expect that. But yeah, I think when I had met with one of our reps, I actually met with her on Thursday to just kind of help me walk through some of this data. She said she thinks that we're doing really well. That on average right now, students are given a year's goal. So they have an annual goal that they're supposed to meet in a year. And so right now, what you'd expect to see or hope to see is that they're at like 50% of meeting that goal. So we're halfway through the year. You would expect they're halfway to meeting that goal. And our average for K through 4, we were at 61%.
Right, but given a goal to increase by 75%, if you're really low to begin with, you're still not getting up to, competing with other schools, right?
Right.
So you can say I increased 50%, but if you were really low to begin with, or,
the great thing
it's
about
harder,
this,
when you're really high, it's harder to increase 50% too, right? So sometimes placing those blanket numbers on them.
yeah.
I mean, the reading stuff looks good, right? There's lots of green. It's good. I mean, I on the surface, without, obviously I don't sit in the classroom, but the math is like, I hope this new curriculum is going to help this because in my opinion, it's a little low.
The iReady has the math tool they can use similar to Alex, right? Where it helps. Okay, so
Yeah.
it helps them grow at their own rate. Okay.
Exactly.
And for the math, do they take the same test as a pre-test, then take it again in February just to measure where they've come?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's computer adaptive. So they give them some harder questions, some easier questions, and the computer adapts based on their answers. So they find that exact score. So they'll give them some review questions, make sure that they still are solid in those, and then it adapts based on how they're responding to the questions.
Okay.
Yep. So,
First of all, I think that this is really great. I really appreciate this, and I'm imagining that this is a great learning. This is a great resource for teachers to be able to see, and parents, if it's explained to them like you say it's going to be. I also wonder, I know that last year we did a phenomenal summer school program, and I think they're planning, I think Kim had mentioned that they're doing one this year. Will we be able to, help target into our summer school program some of these students that have had a gap? Maybe it's being absent, quarantine, or just lower, and you say we don't have quite the math supports that we do in the reading. Will there be like a targeted effort to try to, maybe, I know that what was really great about the summer school was it could be for everyone, and there was all kinds of things. It didn't have a negative connotation, hallelujah. But I also feel like the targeted things need to happen for kids that are slipped behind. I have slipped a little bit behind and need it.
Yeah. As administrators, I have access to all K4 students. I can group students in the entire grade. So what they'll do is they place kids in 5 instructional groupings, and they will literally sort the kids by their needs and their skills. So we could take the whole grade, let's say, and if we know who's coming to summer school, they can target exactly what those skills are. Lesson plans are provided.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's a really great math program that the teachers pick, and it's actually one of the ones that they're reviewing right now for reading as well. So
For the what?
Same company.
same company, same. Yep. So yeah, it's a top contender for sure at elementary.
Great.
I have a question. Okay, so you mentioned that these were ESSER funds. So this is the state's requiring this
Yes.
because they gave us money. So we have nothing to compare this to, like from last year. Is this similar to last year, the year before, the year before? We don't, right?
Right. It's hard because we haven't had a consistent assessment for a little while. The reason that we got rid of the reason we adopted the one we had last year was because they were one of the first ones to do this individualized path, but you had to purchase the assessment with it. But before that, we had used an assessment called NWEA, which is very common across the country, across the county. A lot of people use NWEA. We were using that as well, but we couldn't do anything with the data. They didn't give you lesson plans. They didn't tell you how to help really target
Right.
the needs. So that's why we switched last year, because it also offered that virtual component, which we needed. But we didn't love it. And when the committee adopted this math program, this assessment came with it. They gave it to us for free to pilot and try. And so we're loving it. And actually they allowed us to use it for reading as well. So we're able to use a consistent assessment, which has been nice.
So the state's requiring this, and when the ESSER funds are gone, will this requirement go away, or is this a permanent?
We've been
Thing
doing
now.
benchmark testing as long as I've been here,
But
3
I've never
times a
seen
year.
data like this.
Yeah. Oh,
Ever since I've been here.
yeah. Well, I'm a data nerd, so anytime you want to see some data.
So can you also separate it by teacher?
Yep.
So if one teacher's got super explosive math, whatever, their kids are all, then maybe that teacher's doing something that I should be doing.
And part of this is used in their evaluation at the end of the year as well.
Okay.
We look at their growth, their students' growth.
And moving forward, do you plan to bring all of the subjects in here? Besides just 2?
Yeah, this is all that they currently offer. I personally haven't seen any diagnostic assessments for social studies or science for elementary level, but there might be some out there. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if you guys know of any.
I mean, grades are kind of an assessment,
Yeah,
and growth.
right.
There's so much reading involved in both science and social studies that if you strengthen reading, you're likely to strengthen the
Right.
others.
But we should still track everything,
Mhm.
in my opinion. And develop a track record of like, hey, here's where we were 2 years ago. Look how much we've improved in these areas. And it really gives us some good bragging rights.
For sure. And so, we have purchased the math curriculum for 5 years, and this assessment comes with it. So we know for sure we'll have 5 years worth
Right.
of data on the same assessment, which will be very nice.
And then we can always collect our own data.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know Dennis put together like a really fancy schmancy thing that he wants to share with you guys. It's all right. I couldn't.
It's okay. Questions for
Thank you.
5 days?
I would like to talk a little bit what we're doing with the data at the middle school. And I want to give a shout out to Kim Foley and Amanda Schmidt. They have been facilitating data meetings with
great.
all grade levels 5-8. So actually looking at the data from the fall and continuing to look at it now in the winter. FastBridge, which is the assessment that we use for 5-8, has screened interventions within it. So a lot like iReady, there's lesson plans already made for the targeted groups for whatever the kids need, which is phenomenal. As a former teacher, I would have loved that. So Kim and Amanda just work with the grade levels. They identify the students and their needs and really help support the teachers so the teachers can support the students. So definitely wanted to talk to that. And I was happy with the growth that I saw with reading and math in the FastBridge assessments. And what Megan had said, the testing window was supposed to close last Friday, but because of a snowstorm, we're continuing to test. There were a lot of students that had not tested yet.
I have a question. Sorry. I really like, I want to compliment that you would have Kim and Amanda go through, because sometimes that's hard, as a teacher to go through the data. And I think probably the department schedule that you have allows for that. But the thing that I wanted to ask is, we do anything at the middle school level in like a math enrichment? You know how we used to have like a math enrichment? We used to have like a math, well, we always called it enrichment. It could be high, it could be low. The
Sure.
kids really didn't know the difference, which was great. But I do see that that probably is a need, right, to work on that. We don't do that right now.
Not right now. I mean, we offer Algebra 1. I mean, students
Right.
can take different paths, but as for an
Like that
enrichment
pull
class,
out math, yeah,
right,
or yeah,
even during essentials time, having
something like that again.
Not necessarily that. We do offer the other courses,
Okay.
but not
Something
right
like
now.
that. I mean, or I guess, can you group them in the same capability that she's able to group?
I think so. I don't want to answer that, but I think so. I think
Because that would be
is
really
very-
helpful for a middle school, because Mr. Lewis and I used to run summer school on occasion, correct, Mr. Lewis? And sometimes, we made it fun and interesting so that we could get to some of those math things that needed to, that's
Yep.
an interesting point.
Absolutely. That's something definitely to keep in mind for the future.
Some of those targeted interventions are complicated by our current COVID protocols,
Yeah.
especially in the
Oh, right.
elementary, where we try to keep kids in color groups for contact tracing. It's not impossible, but it is
I
complicated.
get you.
I have a question. Surprising, right? So how come we use different assessment tools in the K through 4 and then the middle school?
Well, like I said, we were able to get this pilot for free with our curriculum, and since it went along with our curriculum, it aligns to meeting, like, we use.
Right,
the
but
data
don't we
for-
use the same curriculum in middle school?
No,
I thought we bought a curriculum that was through the whole, through 8th grade.
5 through 12.
5 through 8 had one, and then the K through
5
4
through
was
12,
one that
okay.
It was,
complemented it.
K-5 was looked at for math, and then the 5th grade decided to stick with the reveal curriculum because they didn't want to be the only grade at the middle school that used a different curriculum.
Okay, so so, I mean, I'll be honest, I find this a little hard to understand. Maybe my brain's not too old or whatever, but, I mean, whereas this, right, it was very obvious what was happening here. I don't see that. So can you explain that a little bit to us?
You have, so the purple is what you're looking for. You want purple. Purple's good.
And what's
Light purple,
What
dark
is
purple. That's, so if you look at the F and the W, are you on the,
Have them both, whichever one you
Math.
prefer.
so F is fall, W
Right,
is winter.
Yeah, I got
So
that
you notice the pink colors,
one, right?
which is high risk, some risk. High risk stays at 13%. Some risk drops 3%. You want to see those numbers drop.
Okay.
When you get to the purple, you see those numbers rise from 38% to 39%. That's a good thing. It's 1%. It's growth. And then same with college pathway. That's going from 16% to 18%.
And what determines a college pathway?
I would assume it's performing above grade level standards, being proficient.
Okay, and then the chart over here, fall, winter growth, what's that? It's 10, 22, what's that? Over to the
So
right.
if you look down at the key on the bottom, that would be like the purple is typical growth. The light purple is what they call aggressive growth. Ooh. So
Nice.
those kids made a lot of growth. So the majority of the students there, small print, 68% made either typical growth or aggressive growth of our 5th through 8th grade students.
On math.
Math. Yep. Then if you go to reading, the numbers are
Better yet.
actually, yeah, better. You go from 14 to 11, 29 to 24, and then you're seeing the low risk and college pathway numbers go up.
Seems like we're doing better at reading than we are math in general.
I've done the number of supports.
There's, and with any new curriculum, you have like research shows that you'll have an implementation dip is what they call it. So you'll see
the data typically drop down with something new and then go back up because it's new, they're learning it. That's very common with any new curriculum adoption.
And this has parent reports and all of that too.
It does, yep. We were actually going to send those home this week, but because we
Okay.
extended the window, report cards will go home this week and data reports will go home the following week.
Is there any way to move towards, like a common assessment so that kind of all look alike, including the high school? So, I mean, I guess they can't look exactly
I
alike,
think with
but
the difference in curriculum, you want your assessment to be meaningful too. So like
Right.
the iReady assessment helps our instruction because we're using
Right.
the Ready curriculum.
Yeah.
I know FastBridge was very important to Kim Foley in particular and Trisha at the middle school because it has a really extensive progress monitoring feature. And that was important to not just do the 3 benchmarks a year, but to have those measures in between. And that was something we were lacking in our special ed department as well. We needed to be more aggressive in how we were keeping track of the data. And,
Right.
and FastBridge was stood above the rest as far as that progress monitoring feature.
I acknowledge that 2 different tools, the way the data shows, may not allow for comparison between K-4 and 5 to 8. But it looks like we had much better growth K through 4 than we have had 5th through 8 between fall and winter. So like if I look at like the percentage changes at K through 4, you're looking at like 21% in green. Like there were big jumps, a lot of reduction in yellow, and then kind of commiserate reduction in red. But when we look at,
Lower grades.
if we go into the middle of like the page for math, where it says 5, 6, 7, 8, some of these grades actually look like it might be getting worse in the winter. Like we have more high risk in the 5th grade than we did in the fall?
No, I think that's reducing. The pink and the red are reduced. Oh, do you mean like the double
The 8th
red?
grade looks like it.
Grade,
I
yeah.
think is bigger.
Yeah,
And
the
you
pink
will
has
see
grown a lot.
less growth expectation. Not that they're expecting less growth, but as far as like that median score, and you'll notice that even with kindergarten through 4th grade too, like they're required to make less and less incremental growths at the higher that they get.
Okay.
But I am interested though to see end of the year and see the full range. In thinking about NWEA, when we took NWEA for many years, even when I was in Detroit, the winter scores would either shoot up or go down. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing the end of the year in comparison to the beginning.
And the testing again is like end of September to November, or end of September to,
End of January,
End of January.
end of January, and then again.
so about
end of
halfway.
Trisha, how do the kids, like administering the NWA was like
It's still
that? How did the kids respond to this opposed to the NWA, which was always like, I'm not going to try. I don't care. It's the
So
NWA.
interesting, you should ask. But the cool thing that's come from the data meetings is the conversations, and that the kids are actually seeing the teachers put their scores into what they're doing within the classroom. So here's a student saying, well, I'm bored. This is what it's showing me. So you got to show me what you know.
Good.
Where you had some kids that were like, click, 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 click. And
Choose B on every answer.
yeah, right.
See?
So I think that there's
More
that
meaningful.
accountability piece that I need to try. I need to show what I know, and taking ownership of their test. So that was something good that came out of
That's
the
nice.
data.
do you get more information out of the iReady than you do the middle school one? Or no, not really?
I don't think so. I think that generally benchmark assessments give you the same type of thing. They look at typical growth, they set goals for students, and then the progress monitoring piece, and then next steps as far as instruction goes. So they're pretty common across the board.
They just
All of
use
them.
different colors,
They
not
do.
like green, yellow, red, and the ones we understand,
The
purple,
fall,
red.
the fall test that you take with either test, are those standards, are those set by the company then?
or is that something that we plug in?
No, it's the Common Core state standards
Okay.
that they're measuring,
So,
the
okay.
Michigan standards.
But they develop that value, that number
Yeah.
based on
Well,
what the
they're
state.
like criterion reference, norm reference, they do studies, you know how
Okay.
to do all that, yeah.
So we don't have, and then from there, well, that's just the benchmark that the state selects, and then we see how we stack up to the rest of the
Yes.
state. Okay.
You got it.
Oh,
You know a little something.
don't tell anybody.
Thank you.
I don't know how I can follow that up, but I'll try to be brief. How does that sound? So first off, thanks for being patient. Our grades weren't due until Friday, which meant a lot of the data that I'm going to talk about, I didn't get until Friday night, which means Sunday, sometime after the sun come up, Sunday morning is when I finished writing all of this. So hopefully it makes sense to all of you because I was a little confused by that. But when you're looking at a data analysis in a narrative form, it's not as easy and as simple as, hey, they took a test, here's your numbers, it's going to spit it out, give you all this instant stuff. It's kind of like taking a bag of fruit and going, is this a good bag of fruit? But no fruit in there is the same as all the rest. You got apples and bananas and oranges and everything. So you're basically looking at math, science, English, social studies, health and PE, music, language, art, technology, and then you're looking for trends in those. So you can't lump them all together because, say, the math department, you look at that, there's 6 different math classes within the math department, 5 different instructors. They're all trying to use the same assessment, but they may all be at different points. So pacing guides is something that we're working on. These numbers here, I was satisfied with, but I think we can do better, and we're working on that right now. The areas that I always look at to begin with is our English scores, because no matter what happens, English affects everything else you do. Science, social studies, your reading and writing comprehension, whether you're writing a science lab, you got to be able to write it, read it, understand it as you're reading. Understanding directions to do math work all comes down to that. Social studies obviously does a lot of reading, so that's a helper and runs kind of together. So when you look at the English department, I look at the trends at each end and then see what's going on in the middle and if that continues or is common through there. So when we looked at the freshmen and 8th graders coming up, we looked at where they were at the beginning of the year, and we use rubrics for that. So their writing performance was pretty low, right? But they increased between September, late September, October to just now, just this last week, by 50% almost, 49%, right? They went from having scores of 3.7 to 7.5 out of 10 on their writing performances.
So explain that, what 3.7 and 7.5 is.
So-
How did that, where do those numbers come?
It basically, if I gave you 10 questions, they were scoring 3.7 out of the 10. And then they've doubled that up to a 7.
So like they wrote a paper.
Yes, they might write a paragraph and it's scored. And then, for errors and things like that. So we look at those and then we say, all right, how many are proficient? Because in the high school level, the state of Michigan wants us through Common Core, in the Common Core curriculum, to have students, when they walk out the door, they are expected to be proficient. Proficient by the state of Michigan standard is 80%. So that they should have an 80% when they score on a test, things like that, that shows proficiency. So when we look at growth, we have a growth goal in mind. Some of the classes set them as a class whole, some of them set them individually. so that each student has a growth goal to meet. Could they make their growth goal and still not be proficient? Yes. But the idea is that they're showing growth because that is our main goal. But at graduation, they want us to have them proficient. So that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're going for. So when you finish looking at the freshmen, at the beginning of the year, there were none of them even close to proficient in English skills at all.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
That I assume because you have department meetings that go between 7th, 8th, and high school now, right?
We're working on getting those.
That is a major concern,
Yes.
right? Because your teachers who taught English here had to jump high to get them up to a level of proficiency that they should have come in at, or at least higher than what they came in at, which is a concern.
I know exactly what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. And I think, in our weekly meetings, Trish and I meet weekly to discuss where we're
That's
at,
great.
what we're doing, because there has been a significant gap between the two buildings communicating. So we're trying to find ways to end that. So her and I starting those conversations is a good way to do that.
Okay.
But we're very happy then to say that 53% of them Friday were at proficiency
Yeah, that is great.
or near,
But-
right? So, but our goal is to have 70% of them proficient at the end of this year. And then each year we grow. So when you look at the senior year, which is at the end of it, that number there, they start looking at as far as like the rubrics in their writing. And you look at increases or decreases in mistakes. So we can say that they had a 20% decrease in their mistakes in their writing rubric. That obviously shows that they're getting better, they're improving. But does 20% decrease show that there's a 45% increase? You don't know. Again, is it a nice basket of fruit? Yeah, sure is. But how do we compare?
Wouldn't we know if we tracked it every year? And
That would be an awesome thing to do, and we're only beginning to do that
Okay.
because data has not been
That's what I want to hear.
collected, and it has not been.
We've not done it.
No,
Yeah.
we haven't, and so we're changing that.
Yep.
So basically, what we do is now we look at, all right, subject level material. Your seniors are now making 55% towards proficiency. So that means that you think about that number is far over the 45% growth. If 55% of your class are proficient in English scores, that's a good number.
You also have seniors that take dual enrollment for their English in
Oh,
their senior
absolutely.
year, and you don't have their measurements in there, which would probably push that up higher.
That's true. So, that's how we have to look at the basket of fruit. Some of them aren't always going to be counted towards that number. Now, if all of this continues to grow, because we know that the last 6 years, we have seen steady declines in our college readiness scores, which is like ACT, SAT, things like that. And we've seen steady declines in math scores and science scores. We've seen steady declines in our AP scores. All of those things are related to English. Because you're not going to do well writing the essay part of an AP test if you're not writing well in an English 12 class. So we have to continue to build on that. So English, I think, is doing well, which leads us to some of the other departments. And although, we can go through all of them if you want, but English is I think that core. And part of it is that we are constantly trying to get class sizes down. In order to get better at reading and writing, you have to read, you have to write. And when you've got classes of 34 kids, there's not enough hours in the day for an English teacher to assign regular writing assignments and then correct them all and give meaningful feedback. So class sizes are a huge issue when it comes to English. And it has an effect. Now, when you look at social studies, which is on page 3, you can see that 90% of the students showed growth of 45% or better. Wow, that's an outstanding number. And that 75% of them were proficient, and that another 10% were near by one or two questions to be proficient. They've already met their yearly goal. Now they just need to keep that goal. And they have a lot of good ways to do that. Yes.
So let's go back to English.
Yeah.
I like the discussion you were having about English, but what I'm trying to grasp is for the board, or for me as a board member, I'll speak for myself. How are you correlating? How am I going to be able to see year by year correlation, freshman to sophomore to junior to senior? How do I know when you tell me the senior class is 55% proficient in their English and the freshman class at the same time is 53% proficient, that what's happening in the freshman class, if you say 55% is great for seniors, how do I know that 53% in the freshman class is where they need to be at the winter testing or checking time, right? The winter grade test. And it's going to get them to the same or better level. Like, how do I know, okay, the freshman class is should project better than the current senior class. The sophomore class is going to project better or worse than the current senior class.
I can't give you that information.
We could see trends though, like
Trends,
with the
yes.
graphs that the ladies
If there's
provided.
longitudinal data, we don't have.
Okay, so I guess my second question then, so elementary and middle school have these very lovely assessments that spit out a lovely report, and I get why you don't get that. I totally understand.
Yeah.
So I totally get the fruit basket thing. But what do you need to be able to get the trends or to understand the data better? Is there something that, a tool you need or a consultant that you need or anything? Or is it really just time to see the data and start looking at it?
That's what it is. Data and true common assessments that we can use from year to year to year. And you have to remember that, freshman English or freshman social studies classes, freshman U.S. history, this year's freshmen may be astounding in social studies. And next year's is much better in math. So you're going to see changes. But the teachers using the common assessment would look at and say, all right, this is where they started. This is what we need to do to get them. So when they look at the beginning of the year at the common assessment and say, wow, they only scored at 3.7. These are the areas that we need to hit. These are the areas that they're already doing pretty good. That's how that data is used to affect instruction. And really what it comes down to is time, like I said, and the information.
So how do you use the data to know that the curriculum is working? So I get, we're dealing with humans.
Yeah.
It's like expecting every doctor's appointment every day to be 5 minutes an appointment. That's just not the way it's going to work, right? Every human being is different. You have the same problem with your students, right? Not problem, but situation
It's a
with your
challenge.
students.
It's a
So-
situation.
How can you utilize this data to know that long-term the curriculum is working?
So we look at, so let's say the freshman class this year, right? And when they start taking, because this is when really this year is when we really started to look at data, collect it, use it as a way to affect our instruction. In 3 years, when they take their college readiness exam, are our scores going up? Are they not going up? Are they plateauing? Are they making a difference? Are our AP scores going up? Are they going down? Stagnant. Are we looking at CTE skills? Are we looking at, there are all sorts of things. We use my school data. We can break that down to all sorts of things on those particular tests. One of the other things that we look at is college remedial coursework. So we know that in the last 5 to 6 years, we saw a dip and it came up just a little bit this year. But the dip hasn't been significant but the number of kids that are actually taking college remedial courses is significantly high for what it should be here at Jones.
So I think the challenge to you then is, if I'm blessed with another term on the school board, which I hope to be, I don't want to hear every year, well, then it's only my second year data, it's only my third year data. So, what's your short-term way of assessing your curriculum and the growth of your students? What's your midterm way, kind of like phasing out of using the standard, the ACT, SAT, AP course, and then moving to the long-term data narrative and then utilizing the data narrative. I think working that out will help the board, everyone understand kind of how is data being used, or else we're going to continue to hear, well, the data changed, or we're using a different source, which I totally understand the background behind those statements this evening, and I'm empathetic to it. But, what is that plan for high school? And the reason Dennis, I'm kind of asking you a lot of those questions is because the people look at the high school result, right?
Yeah.
And we want more of the banners that we have in both of the doorways, right? Say best high school list, all that kind of thing. So, I encourage you as a user of data myself to kind of think of it that way: short term, midterm, long term, kind of ramp down, ramp up, all that kind of fun stuff.
When you go into my office, you look at my board, it's short term, midterm, long term, all those. It's the same thing here. We just don't have any midterm or long term data to use.
But I think if you could figure out that maybe, and I'm sorry, Suzanne, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna ask if you could get it. I mean, the more similar the data is to each other, and I know it's different through grade levels, but do you plan to put yours in kind of graph form like this?
There's no way I can do that.
See, I don't get
Because
that.
you
Why?
have about 30 pages.
Well, I think one of the reasons is, in fourth grade, every student takes the same fourth grade math.
Exactly.
In
But you
10th
could
grade,
still-
some take algebra, and this is calc, trig, so
Yeah,
it's
but you could
smaller.
still say Suzanne Moore stayed level. She never got better in all the math classes she took. Even though he took high ones, I took low ones. He improved, I didn't. Or maybe I improved and he didn't. But that's data that's collectible, I would think.
This data, teachers use that in the moment to affect student learning so that they meet the requirements at the end of the year, so that when they go to the next class, a teacher should be able to say, the student is prepared to
Right.
learn this next set of skills or knowledge.
I mean, I guess I'm just saying there should be a way to say, yes, we are improving in math, or, or no, we're not, just because there's 6 math
Well, the
classes.
nice thing about math is that we have Alex. And the Alex program runs right side by side, like 2 motorcycles down the highway, okay, with the curriculum. So as they're learning, they're getting tested and building. So you can see, when you look at the math, that they have 70% of all their students meeting or exceeding their growth goals set at the beginning of the year. So that's easy to see in that. Much more difficult when you have no program, no data warehouse, no anything
Right.
for 3 U.S. history classes, 5 world history classes, 6 economic classes, 6 government classes. All
Right.
of that data isn't something that.
But you do know whether they're getting a 3.7 or a 7. I mean, whether they're failing or passing or
Yes.
getting A's or B's. So
Right.
that's data.
That is data, but is that really, that's not really the data that helps us to
Okay, I need to better understand that.
To choose which educational technique we use next as an educator. It's not, they got 3.7. Do they know the stuff?
If you got an A, you probably do. Maybe not. Maybe they cheated. I don't know. I mean, I guess
English should be.
Aren't
a little
grades
bit
worth
easier to
anything then?
compare in the long run. If you all are using the same rubrics, and I understand that you might elevate the rubrics for a college prep course, but that is a question too. Like, are the rubrics the same? Is the rubrics that a student uses to be evaluated in writing at 8th grade, 7th grade, the same as what they're going to do at high school? are reviewing the English curriculum, so I would like to see that.
Yeah.
And I bet you would too when you look at those scores.
Suzanne, you had another question about grades? You
No,
said
I was
grades-
just saying-
are grades really worth anything?
I
mean,
think to Suzanne's point, we're just looking for an overview.
Yeah, kind
Where's
of
the
like a
growth?
success. And obviously
We're
there's,
getting down into too much nitty gritty, and I mean, they're using it as an assessment tool. We're saying as a board, we want to see,
Right.
are we doing better, are we not? What do we need to improve?
And you're right, and I get it, and seeing that's easier here than it is here. That's why the state of Michigan asks us to do a narrative to look for trends. Because unless you have a data person on staff who can take all of that
Well,
and run everything and make sense of it.
there's such a
Very-
I
person.
agree. I feel like that's something that would be helpful. I bet it would be helpful for you
Just-
too.
But you're gonna get those trends with having a standard over time now.
Yes.
So it's- you'll see some bumps and hiccups and things like that because a person leaves, a new teacher comes in. There's gonna be some differences, but you'll see a general pattern.
Yeah.
But
and
the
that's
narrative
thing.
is hard to conceptualize, whereas the
Right.
graphs are,
And so that's why, you know.
I mean, I get
after
it.
so many hours of looking at all the data,
Right.
you start to see things. Not necessarily
Yeah.
what's in there, but you
I see things all the time.
And so some of the trends that are in there really pop up, but some of them aren't so, and that's why, like in the science one, I put in there and explained, hey, they're making their growth goal that we quoted to the state of Michigan. But realize what that growth goal is. You ask 10 questions and the kid gets 0 on the first test. If he gets 5 questions right on the second test, he's now made his growth goal. Still isn't passing the class.
No,
He's still not proficient.
right.
So it's two different worlds that we're having to look at because the state of Michigan at the end of it wants to know, is this kid proficient? He had to have grown through that time.
Right.
So, we're trying to hit 2 different marks with 1 shot. And we're getting better at it, but the staff at the high school hasn't really had to bear down on that. And
What do other schools do? I mean,
they do the same thing. They do what we're doing. They look at growth goals. The state of Michigan since 2014 has required schools to use growth data.
not like this though.
Well, yeah. They've required it as part of the evaluation process. But it's also part of making informed, data-driven decisions on curriculum. And curriculum breaks right down to what I'm teaching this chapter, all right?
So there's two
Not
measurements.
just this year.
There's really 2 measurements you want to see. One is proficiency, which is probably our curriculum. Or more than proficient, if that's our target.
Always want to go for more than proficient.
And then what I hear you say is that the data that you have today and the information that you have today is allowing teachers to start to hone in on individual students or small groups of students and say, what do we need to do to help them improve and meet the growth goal or exceed it? Maybe what's missing because we just don't have enough information yet is, are we now where we can judge that these curriculums are building a proficient or more than proficient general population year after year?
There just isn't, what's in here is just stuff from since August of 2021.
Yeah.
And that's really all we have. I can go back and give you grade reports. But again,
Well, and we can work into something that's
yeah,
good for you to use and
that's the
Well,
thing.
good for us to
I
understand.
think where the rubber meets the road is when we start seeing our college readiness scores go back up, our
Yes.
ACT scores go back
Yes.
up, our AP
Right.
scores back up,
Yes.
our proficiency scores go up. I mean, he
Graduation rate
started
going
with
up.
the fact,
Yeah.
that they're going down. So we're in high school, I've just figured out in the last few minutes, that's where the rubber meets the road. So I agree with you on that. The second thing I agree with you on, and I'm really happy about is I agree English is the core to the world, right? You have to be able to communicate. There's nothing that was more frustrating to me during my careers. I'd have a electrical engineer with a 4-year degree, and I'd ask him to write me a proposal or something. And it was insane. It just, the grammar was poor, the punctuation was terrible. And I mean, I think that, you know, it's really important that we send students out that to the world and to college that can write a paper that makes sense and there's structure to it and all that. And so I'm happy to see the English scores going up, and I appreciate what you say about that. So that's enough.
And the other thing I just want to touch on, and I know I said be short, but when you look at art, music, and technology and language, their scores are not based on testing. They're based on the 4 Ps, which is projects, performance, portfolios, and products. And you still see growth in our students in those areas. So, but it's very subjective. And I just want to always say that because everybody always looks at the core areas and never looks at those other areas. They're doing outstanding work too.
And they
so.
should be supporting the core areas, to be
Yeah,
truthful.
well.
Right? They do.
In conjunction.
Yes, they help, they, in all theory, they should be through writing and art or whatever, you know, be improving the main core subjects.
So do I think we're meeting the 45% goal as an overall in a trend at Tecumseh High School? Yes. It's just very hard to break it down and give you exact data because it's just so much.
Well, I mean, it's great to meet the state goals, but we want to do a lot better than that, right?
Yeah.
Well, there'll get no arguments on that,
Yeah.
for sure. So, I mean, I think that we'll just pay attention to what's happening in those tests. So, all right, any other questions?
No, I think it's good to see. I mean, I like the fact that Dennis and Trish are talking to each other. You know, when you're at the high school and you teach the high school and you see kids be valedictorians or salutatorians, whatever the case may be, or this kid gets a scholarship hither, thither, or yon, you know, the high school teachers, you know, they feel good about it because they're the last teachers to have that student, but that started way back in kindergarten and it was nurtured all the way through. So it really is a team effort, and getting things linked up together here like they're trying to do right now. And it's tough to do in a year period. It's tough to do in a year when people are here, gone. I mean, a lot of our staff members have been out for the last 2 years, you know, so it's been tough to put this together, but it's got to get done. And I think you guys are on the right track to do that. So I appreciate that from all of you, even the ones sitting over there
It's a culture.
that didn't
We
want to talk.
We just have to change it.
Right.
And with the deer miners,
Good
When
job.
it's involved.
the deer miners.
Everybody else?
Had you right up here.
Good. All right, thanks.
I appreciate the report from the administrators. I had prepped them for about a 15-minute report. So they exceeded the expectations there. You know, the pandemic does a lot of things to a lot of parts of our work. And right now, data collection and combining it is not a jet aircraft. It's kind of a biplane right now. And we'll get better at it. I think that it's important that we continue to collect the same information over time. And as we get better at collecting it, the board, I think, can expect to get better at understanding it. But thank you for the presentation today.
Okay, let's keep moving. Next is a joint workshop with the city administration, board of education, and I'll report on that. So we did have a meeting last Monday. I haven't heard a single person say that it wasn't a great productive meeting. I personally feel it was, and the feedback is that it was. I mean, we spent a lot of time right up front talking about the bond proposal, and we're going to get to a little bit of that in a minute. And then it was great for me personally. I think others agreed to see, you know, what we are getting from them. And there was a lot of stuff that we are and things that I've forgotten. And as my children have gotten older, I don't see that as much. And there really are two organizations that need to be tightly coupled. And that was a great first step. You know, I talked to Mayor Baker and he absolutely agrees. And we're going to do this on a regular basis. Now, what regular basis is, if it's year or bi-yearly, we'll figure that out. But I think he said, you know, the town needs strong schools and the schools need a strong town, and that's true. So one of the things that was kind of eye-opening out of the meeting was that we really needed more answers about how the bond works, right? So we asked Rick, and he had Nate Watson. He's here. Nate, you want to come up? He's from our the financial company, PFM, and he created this fact document, which really helped because it certainly, in my mind, it's not so much about the number of mills; it's about the money, right? It's always got to be 75 million that we collect, or whatever that yearly portion of that is. So I know that some of the board members had some questions. Hopefully you've had time to review this. I guess we brought Nate here today to kind of help us through some of that. So does anybody have any questions for him?
I took his seminar at the MASB conference.
No, there you go.
That's right.
I think that the FAQ document and some of the
FAQ was
details that
good.
he provided really dug into some of the details that we were missing in the presentation to the city, or at least that
Questions from the
questions from the gallery that came up that we weren't able to fully answer in detail. So I told him when he sent me that he nailed it in terms of what we were looking for. But he also wanted him to come to answer any clarifying questions.
So I don't know, where do we stand as far as being able to release this to the public?
Getting released.
This information would be considered a public document. One of the things that I did after Nate sent it to me before sending it to you was had our attorneys look at it to make sure that it's completely factual only and not promotional in any way. So this is information that we could provide to the public in that form or in smaller sound bites through social media, through our website. It's all consumable for the public.
So Nate, because we have this, but one of the big questions last Monday night was, what happens when the economy gets better or worse, right?
Sure.
So if you explain, why don't you explain that, because we have people who are watching this, are going to be watching this, who probably have those same questions.
Sure.
So let's, not just for us, but for the people out there.
No,
Go
that
ahead.
makes sense. And what I was trying to do is kind of put it in concise wording. Really what the public is going to vote on is whether or not the district can issue $75 million. That's basically the question. And the second part is, these are the projects that will use it on. So a lot of the legalese, but these are legal buckets that you can use those bond proceeds for. That's really the question. Underneath is the informational purposes only. We estimate what those millages, projections, what we think they'll be, but it's based on what the actual debt service is going to be. We don't know what that is because we can't sell the bonds until after the yes vote. And more importantly, we don't know what the future value, taxable value is going to be for 30 years. So again, the question is whether or not the district can issue $75 million. They say yes, fast forward about 2 months. Before the district's L429 or when we start to levy in 2022 on July 1, we will issue the bonds. The bond proceeds will be in the district's account. At that point, we know what debt service will be. And we projected future taxable values based on where the economy's at, where it comes to schools, taxable value is gone. It's not perfect, right? But we try to be conservative. We've got a high confidence level that will come to fruition. We try to be conservative so you deliver a better product to the community. But once that debt service is based on an annual basis, once it's set, we then each year look at the district's taxable value. We look at the debt service payment to be made. We divide, and that millage goes on to the tax bill. And again, we try to be conservative with our interest rate projections, and future taxable value grows. But if something happens like in 2008, 2009, the taxable value gets cut in half, now that millage, in theory, could go up, but the dollar amount produced will be the same. We issue fixed rate bonds, so if the taxable value goes down, say that the homeowner had a $100,000 house, maybe it's $75,000 now, but if the millage goes from 4 to 3 or 3 to 4, those two get multiplied and the same dollar amount gets levied, right? So when one multiplier goes down, the other one goes up, but we still produce the same debt service as issued in June of 2022, if that makes sense. So yes, one multiplier could go up, but that means the other multiplier went down. Therefore, whatever revenue that we thought would be needed is still needed,
It's just a different millage rate on your tax bill.
You sort of have to create $75 million, so you adjust the mills up and down according to the taxable value. And just like if you mentioned here, if a large manufacturer comes in and starts paying a bunch of taxes,
Exactly.
then the load on the homeowners goes down.
Would go down.
Because
The whole tax base pays for this debt service. So when it goes up, then the debt millage goes down. You're absolutely right. But what we do is, we're issuing a 30-year bond here. What we do is we look at your existing debt and then basically couple it in so the millage rate isn't increased on the community. The good thing is the district experienced debt service going down from 21 to 22, which creates this opportunity. So we look at that landscape. We then basically mold this new debt onto the existing debt in order to have a nice smooth millage. And we project that 7.2 mils to occur for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and then it naturally, gradually starts to decrease.
yeah, and again, these are all estimates based on, over 30 years that we hope that the values of our homes are going up. So
That's
you'll have to collect less mills on that. So, I mean, if you look at this estimate, it's like 2.3 mills and if I pay my taxes in 2051. I hope, right?
Exactly, and the bonds will be callable, so the district will have the opportunity to refund them. But that's kind of the overall theory.
Does that help everyone? I mean,
So basically, to put it in simple terms, the portion of the tax bill that goes to the school district, if it's $50 right now for a homeowner, it will stay $50, and in 2029 it'll go down. And
But so basically, the way I see it is that taxpayer on my home, I have to pay $50 a year. If my value of my home goes up, well, I'm paying less percentage. If it goes down, I'm paying more percent, but I'm still paying $50.
Right. So I think one of the concerning points I've heard from constituents is, so if the value of my house goes up, I'm going to be spending more dollars per year. No, you're not.
No, you're
When we
not.
say tax is not going up, that check you're writing stays the same amount.
And when I look at this, really asking for the millage to be extended 7 years, the roll-off starts off that we're seeing now just gets delayed 7 years. And that we can tell the taxpayers that's a fact.
Correct, it is, absolutely. So it's not that you're keeping it for the next 30 years, it's just that's where it needs to stay for the next 5 or 6. And then starts to decreases to nothing.
I'm really happy to see that when I'm 91, it'll be somebody else will be paying it for me, but
This is important to get
And
out.
even if the tax value does heat up, it's the taxable value is what we pay taxes on in Michigan. That's strapped to CPI inflation. So just because your house goes up by 20% doesn't mean your taxable value will go up by 20%. Your SEV, your state equal value goes up, and that gets uncapped when you sell it. So
That's why your taxable value is different than your SEV.
Absolutely, yeah. The SEV is half the market value. Your taxable value is half the market value when you buy, and then Michigan holds it to inflation essentially until you sell.
which is high.
5. And inflation is 3.3. Last year, 1.1.
Yeah, this is the exact question
This
we
is
were
great.
getting asked on.
You should have had this the other night.
Organizational meeting in 3 weeks.
We can share this with the city council, right, and
We
the
can.
public.
We will. That was one of the things.
I'd like to
they
see
asked.
something like that on
In the
in the
paper.
paper,
I would too.
website, both, because and
And
with
all
the
kinds of-
narrative, because those are questions I've heard. So if my taxes go up, I got to pay more. I hope not, because I don't think I am.
Did I forget? it? Any other questions for Nate?
I don't see it on here, and maybe something we're doing later, but one of the questions the other night was, so what is the equal to if your home is worth like 200,000? Like, what are you paying? So that might be something to calculate out just to have, because we're gonna get asked that again.
Sure, well, I mean, a mill is basically, 7.2 mils is,
I know.
yeah, $7 on 1,000, so.
But
But we, yeah, well, in the marketing,
$720.
Well, I mean,
on.
you look at the schedule, yeah, it's just calculating today, what does
I think
a
people
house
like to
that's
see it that
has a
way.
value to it.
They
Yeah, I
like
know
it
you
both
do.
I
ways.
know, But I'm saying,
Right.
if we have that sample,
No,
if our house is worth X, this is what it costs. I think that somebody to ask, and I just think it'd be a good.
Taxable value in the house.
Right.
So, I mean, in the marketing data that, I think that's Eduardo, right? His TMP was on that, obviously.
Yeah, I
Very
think
good
any
point.
way, to Becky's point, I think any way you could show it in a equation or visual that's very simple, because to Becky's point, she deals with mills every day. I've dealt with taxes and different things, right? But not everybody, majority of the population anywhere has not. And so to be able to say, A, the amount you write on your check isn't changing, and B, if it's $200,000 today, this is what that amount is, kind of just makes it very simple, I think. Makes it a lot easier than a whole list of 30 years of numbers and that sort of thing. It gets a little.
And we're having together matrices or anything like that for an easy visual. We do sometimes put together a millage calculator that's typically for a millage increase. That doesn't mean that we couldn't put together some sort of calculator that someone could go in and input their taxable value and see, what those millages are. And it can be done, on a complete level as well. I know there's many local units in the district, so the various townships, city would have, different villages, but we could show that too in totality.
To Lynn's point, the most important thing is that there is no change, the check is the same.
Yes.
All right, anything else? Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank
Thanks,
you for your time.
Thanks, Nick.
Absolutely.
All right, next on the, is the discussion items. First discussion item is MASB Board of Directors election. Do you want to comment on that?
So you have in your packet information about the Board of Directors election, and the board has to officially decide who that person's going to be to represent. I don't remember the person's name.
It's Region 7, there's 3 Region 7 3-year terms. Michael McVeigh, Suzanne
Susan.
Marlin Zelzer.
Suzanne Moore.
So how do, at first, I don't remember doing this last year, maybe we did. How do we decide this? Does anybody have experience with Rick of what the process is?
It's simply a matter of making a motion to cast a vote. I believe that there's a board delegate to MASB who has to certify it.
Right. So, again, we were provided in our packet today, these, many, but there's 3 that are particular for us that I printed out. I mean, we don't intend to take action on it till the next meeting,
Correct.
but I guess this is certainly, our time for discussion. Does anybody have any experience or any comments on any of these 3 individuals? It's really hard, we don't know them, right?
We have to read through all that. Mhm.
All right, so I guess,
We're picking, I just want to wrap my mind around it. Are we picking one for the 3, Region 4, one
No,
for regions,
Region
just
7.
our
With
regions?
just Region 7.
Just our region, okay, that makes it,
okay, when did that document, find
Well-
Region 7, review their bios, and then at the next
Be ready to
meeting,
go.
we'll have to,
that's what I thought.
Make a
but I wanted to
motion
make sure.
for an individual, second the motion, and then if there's majority vote, then that will cover Tecumseh's certification of the election.
any other questions?
You got some research to do.
Got a little reading to
A
do.
little homework.
All right,
See if
I'm
we
gonna
had
keep
that
moving
teacher.
because we got a long ways to go yet tonight. Donation, no,
Yes.
oh yeah, donation for the Kiwanis.
And just to clarify, the donation from Kiwanis was for $500, and it's to be split between Herrick Park and Patterson for birthday books. Perhaps Trustee Tomlin could give a little more detail.
Well,
about that.
yeah, I can, but I'll make it really quick. These lovely principals here have been doing a really cool thing since the start of the year, right? You give them a birthday book and then they come down, right?
We do on the announcement, if it's the birthday or early weekend, we'll say it right on the announcement. Maybe our announcements group, we will need some meetings, keep them in their classroom
which we thought was very cool, is a Kiwanis Club that we want to support. We realize the money of $250 per each grade is probably a drop in the bucket toward what they're paying for books, but we wanted to support that. We used to do a dictionary project for all third graders, I believe it was. And, you know, dictionaries are dictionaries now, and books in hand is pretty cool. So I think that probably the Kiwanis will keep that as a project and maybe help grow it.
They made the checkout specifically to Lisa Shirk, so hopefully
Well.
she is making the donation.
It's how it goes sometimes.
All right, and that is on the action later. Any other questions, comments? Solar discussion. We, as you all remember, we did have a presentation at the last meeting. And we did invite Mr. Smith here to be present for questions or maybe input. I don't know, I think maybe just a quick update. Mike, is there, I mean, has anything happened since 2 weeks ago? Good, that's good to know that the money we're paying.
To use our last meeting as like Solar 101
Thank
introduction.
you.
Yeah.
And it seems like every time I turn around, it's changing. The one thing, last time we talked about the middle school and the high school, and some of the numbers changed, and I had questions, and so did Tom, on what was the difference. And part of it was they wanted to put part for the high school here. They wanted to put part of it on the grounds, not just to gain the 1,000 kilowatt system versus 400.
So they came back to us and said they wanted to do that? 'Cause that wasn't part of the
That was a
presentation.
conversation that Kurt and I had, and basically the problem was the grounds inside our grounds. It would restrict what we've got going. I mean, you got the softball and baseball and soccer down there, and then you got an open area. Behind the stadium, you've got an open area, but you use it for practice and different stuff there. So where else are you gonna put this? So we took that out, because I did personally, and it is still negotiable if you guys think that would work, or if we come up with some other way to put stuff around. But my thought was, you don't know in the future, this is your high school, what you're gonna expand or anything else.
Yeah.
And you're pretty well landlocked, the only land that I remember available is right down along the river, and they're not gonna let you do anything down there because of the DNR, I'm sure. So, with that, I also kind of got a brainstorm after that why are we just looking at these two schools? So I asked Kurt to go back and start looking, let's look at the whole school system, all the elementaries and everything, even the maintenance plus garage areas and stuff. So that's where we've been looking for the last month, gathering data and stuff on that. And one of the things is we were limited in high school because of the meters, and he told you, you only put one system on per meter. Well, I knew from my time here and paying electric bills, there was a lot of meters over at the middle school and around town here that we were paying for. So I got with Kelly and she gave me a list of them. There's like 16 of them. And we started sorting through that to see, there is a primary meter. We put the one we talked about on, but that weight room, that used to be a bus garage at one time.
Right.
years ago.
It sure did.
And there's a meter in there, and there's other meters. So we started investigating those through Consumer Power or whoever. And we wound up that we're looking at putting together all the schools with the exception of Sutton. And the problem with Sutton is the company that supplies electric to them does not participate in this program. So they're kind of.
Who's that?
I thought that was Midwest over there. I could tell you.
That's okay.
Anyway.
That's
So Mike, we have 3 different power companies servicing the district. We have 3 different power companies servicing the
I
district.
think so.
Yeah, got it, says yes.
Yes.
We
do.
That's the dumbest thing
We don't decide that, right?
ever. No.
But we don't get to choose.
But we have a bond, so I guess
Exactly.
we can't really be looking at doing anything to the elementaries if the bond passes.
That's okay, Mike.
I did have that.
It's
Bus
MESIC,
garage
but I
would
don't
be
remember what
reasonable.
MESIC
MESIC?
stands
Yeah.
for.
No,
Michigan.
MESC is here,
Yeah.
and then most everything else is consumer power. But
I could swear you said 2, but that might have been just one for the high school and
Right.
Sutton's the 3rd, probably, right?
what's that?
There what, before we just said when we had our presentation, there was 2 different companies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
ME
but
I
Sutton-
think it's MESC, Midwest something.
yeah.
per year. And then it's consumers power over
Yeah.
the other, and all the other schools that I can remember, consumer power.
Except for Sutton.
I don't know why I don't have that. I just
Yeah,
don't have
it's okay.
where I put that.
My biggest question was, what Tim brought up. And that is if there was some other alternative power that all of a sudden came out, some new discovery or whatever, we're locked into that for 30 years. Are there opportunities along the way where we can just get out, no cost to us, or?
Well, I'm pretty sure there is.
I wanna
He
see-
was talking that there's a good chance that most of these, they'll come back in 10 years and just sign it over to you and be done with it. He talked about.
What about-
Sign it over and
removal?
let you collect it for free?
Yes, basically.
Okay. I guess I want to know more about that because that would make a big difference because 30 years seems like a long time and
Well, the other thing that I was sitting back and thinking is you're talking about this bond issue.
Right.
Build a new school. What's going to happen now to Patterson, Herrick, all these other schools?
Right.
You know,
Well, yeah.
And what
Podcasts are
happens,
gone.
what happens if you need a new roof or whatever and all
Well,
that stuff's
that's the
up
other
there?
thing.
Then you're in
part
trouble.
of what we're looking at with the savings and stuff, we can replace some roofs. And I went back and did a survey on it. I had a survey done back in 2015 of all the schools. Went back to that, and all the elementaries are basically 15 to 17-year-old roofs.
Now,
This school
now,
is
now or
20.
when you did the survey?
No, they were 10 plus.
They were 10,
and I
okay, so you
added
had
the
a five,
7
right.
years. And then this school is at least 21 years now,
And what's
They
the
opened
average
in
roof life cycle?
30.
30.
Yep. So there is money to use out of this to re-roof the schools.
And Mike,
But
weren't they going to do a full inspection and
Yeah.
give us he just couldn't because of the weather, but
yes,
that was part of the study, right? Was that they would check the condition of our roofs, not only if it could accept the solar, but, is there something that needs to be done before?
structurally or anything like that.
And
yeah.
along those same lines, I would be interested in what roofing companies have to say. I mean, about other
Well,
projects.
I've already got them involved.
Okay.
We use Tremco. I've
Okay.
used Tremco for 30 some years, 40 years. And they're the ones that have done the surveys here. And so this company is in line with them all the time. They use Tremco a lot. And what'll happen with the roofs is once April gets here, we can get the snow off the roofs, then we can get up there and start doing inspections on all the roofs and see.
Right, and it might be good to look at other roofing companies too, not just the person that's hooked up with that company that
Well,
wants
they're
to sell
not
you the
hooked
solar
up with
panels.
Tremco. Tremco I've used for the roofs here
Okay, for
separately,
years.
but
But that company
Professionally, in
uses
your other
Tremco.
Previous professional use?
Johnson Controls, all through. I use them. So he doesn't care who you get. He'll work with them. And
Okay.
a lot of it's state building codes that you've got to maintain and stuff. And they apply to all, or abide by all those codes and stuff. It's right in the contract.
And they get
So-
a big payout at the beginning from the federal government, right?
Yeah, well, that's the investors.
That's why they do it.
That's
Yeah,
why they're
yeah.
not doing it.
yeah. So
The investors get the money from the
Right, you
government.
get 26% off for investing this
Yeah.
money. So that's
Yep.
half a million, that's $260,000
Yeah.
right off the top.
So Mike, taking into account the change in numbers, I think we need to see what happens with the bond before we look at the alternative of looking at 3 of the elementary schools as options, right? Because
It is, the thing you gotta get, and I had a hard time getting this concept. This is costing you zero from the school standpoint, absolutely zero.
so if the
So,
investor and the
if-
solar company say it's 4 years down the road, we still think it's worthwhile because we're not out of pocket,
Mhm.
then there's a potential to do it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're gonna let
But
them.
we realize a small savings to begin with and it grows over the
It
years.
gets exponentially, over 30 years, it's right now. it's
Right, so the first 5 years,
$5.5 million over 30 years.
first 5 years, we don't see much savings at all.
We go from like 37,000, 42.
Well, but the net savings is only 5,000 the first year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's-
Because what's happening is they're projecting that consumers is gonna raise our rate,
Yeah.
whoever, 6%,
They're gonna.
and they're only gonna raise our rate 1%. So you start to see a difference.
Right.
Yeah, so.
A couple of points, Mike. I mean, no, first of all, Suzanne, you talk about, well, what happens if some alternative energy comes out?
Right.
Well, I would be tickled pink because we're only gonna buy 18% of our electricity from solar. That means we have, 70 whatever percent for this other thing. So
Right.
if we can save twice as much, then we'd be good on that. So, if we're stuck.
Unless it's free.
And always keep in mind, if something new comes out, they got to cost justify it over this.
Right.
So you're going to do another analysis.
Yeah.
And say, well, yeah, we'll save this, but if we do this, we save 30 more percent.
Have you talked in or talked to or having these any other company?
Not at this point. I mean, I'm just.
You expect to?
I think we can. I think that'd be due diligence to, once we figure out what we want to do in the district, which would set the standards of what we're going to do, then ask other companies to take a look at this and give us their numbers and see.
So I guess what I'd like the board to do is just have, get our thoughts on this whole thing. And then, I think, although we should, this is probably something to go back to buildings and grounds, right? For them to work. If this seems like a direction we want them to investigate, we should, go to the subcommittee and keep reporting back to us on that. But, so that's why I'd like to have just a discussion here about, from what we see so far, is this something we want them to continue?
I think so, but I think that there needs to be an understanding of what the district is trying to do, so we're not having them run around and do things that may be unnecessary.
So, and even if you do put it on all the elementaries and somebody else buys, that's a selling point.
Yeah, but
So
they
that's
are
right.
locked into what we do.
Yeah.
So it could
I
be
mean,
a
they're-
non-selling
they're
point
gonna
if somebody
get-
wants to tear the building down.
So you're reducing their energy
Yeah.
costs right off the bat.
What if they want to tear the building down though?
Yeah, dim the
Then
cost.
Then you
fine,
break the
too.
contract and you're in trouble.
Right.
No.
We'll have to discuss that, right?
Yeah, and those are details that we'll have to work out in the contract.
Well, if you're, hooked up with them for 30 years and you have an obligation because you sign a contract, then they're going to expect those solar panels to stay on that building. And if you sell that property, I was under the understanding that the new owner took over the contract, that it didn't, when you sell the building, it doesn't, I guess I just need more answers on stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure all that will
Okay.
be detailed out in the contract. And from my guess is, these guys aren't making their money, the investors, over the 30 years. My guess is they're probably making it for 10 years and then they're done. And after that, they aren't gonna care.
So why don't they give us more savings right out of the gate? If they're making all their savings.
It's all,
Business.
the savings isn't off. of
'Cause
that,
they're benefiting.
them, It's off of
Government
the
credit.
electricity. You gotta keep that in mind.
They get
They're selling
a
us-
payoff from the government.
They
Well, they
do,
get tax
but that
They
has
get-
nothing to do with it.
Right, so they get money,
No.
they get
we
a
don't.
giant
They get a
tax
tax
credit, that's
incentive.
money.
We don't.
But
No,
that's
we
the,
do
not.
that's how they're investing and putting it
Yeah.
on.
That's why they do it. They're the ones benefiting. We don't benefit till later.
You benefit.
5,000.
It's installed. There's no
5,000.
capital outlay, so you're not.
Right.
paying taxes or whatever and all that.
Yeah, we definitely want this thing to run 30 years because the longer it's there, the
Right.
more money.
Yeah, but
Well,
that's
he
another
said
thing.
when
I've been
he was
doing some
here That it was very common that at 10 or 15 years, they may say,
we're done, they just hand it right over to you. And
Yep.
they thought the life expectancy, they thought was 25 to 30 years. So if you get 10 years of free energy out of that, and there's got to be
possible roof
companies that we
upgrades.
could hire.
Plus the roof upgrade.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. There's got to be companies that we can hire to come in and run that or manage it for us. Just they aren't maintenance free.
So how do we get all of our money if it goes?
You're
Our savings are over
you're
30
saving on
years.
Electricity, that's your bet.
But if they're done with us after 10 or 15, then we
It's
we
still
don't get the
producing.
big savings
You
later
may
on.
you have a bigger savings if they're done after 10 or 15 because they don't take their cut. It's yours.
Oh,
you
because they're
own
going
it.
to give them to you. But I've heard the life expectancy on those things, and they don't really even know. I've heard they used to say 10 years or 10 to 15. Now they're saying 30 years. So what's different that
Well,
all of
the
a sudden they're
technology-
lasting
the
twice as long?
technology I used to be close to a company called First Solar down in Toledo. They make solar panels. What they do, and the technology's come a long way in lots of areas. Certainly efficiencies. I mean, the amount of electricity that a solar panel can generate today versus what 5 years ago is significantly more. And they're just getting better. So it's
The
a
longevity.
technology, right? So it's.
I don't
The
know.
longevity's
I
better.
mean, you
too,
say that,
right?
but I don't know.
That's true.
I've not
I mean,
seen
they,
proof.
I mean, they're, well, we'd have.
I think
to
that's to see data.
I understand.
One place.
I
we
have.
might
I mean,
look
we can
at,
get it.
in my opinion, to put up solar panels is where the bleachers used to be when it was Indian Stadium. If we can just put a fence up around those or no?
He does that. They've got some kind of program. He goes in on Google Earth or whatever and see the school, and it takes into account all the sun elevations and
Trees,
angles
yep.
and all that, and he'll tell you where.
But they want the panels to face south.
He looks at the whole, I think the whole property.
Cool.
Yeah.
The panels, if they're fixed, face south.
Okay.
Is that true?
Southwest usually.
So, that's a west-facing hill, so
Yeah, it's more south.
they're fixed. But I mean, I know that going over west, they are facing.
Yeah, it's like the ones out here on Occidental towards Uniloy, that out there, they're all facing pretty much south, maybe southwest. That Sutton Energy Company is MI, Michigan SEC, I don't know.
Tim, you look like you guys have kind of.
I mean, it's probably 800,000 to put these in between the two schools. So you could, if you did it yourself, you're going to save $3 million over 30 years. But I think the reason they're probably saying after 10 years, here you go, is because the batteries can only take so many charges after so long, and at the useful life of them. So
Batteries on
They're-
those?
I thought they just had.
how they gonna,
inverter
where they gonna,
batteries on
where they
these.
gonna store the energy?
They're not, they're actually selling it right back to the company.
Goes
Right.
back
That's
to
why
Yeah, I
they
thought
have
he
that
said there's just
meter.
an inverter on this.
Yeah.
That's what they have over there by the vet clinic. They're at a.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not storing to use our own, right? We're-
No, just go back
It
when I
gets
checked.
sold and-
Bellevue schools, that's how they were doing it too.
So they're
Rather
metering
than
it back to
store it,
consumers?
Yeah, it was right back to consumers.
Oh, I thought he said we couldn't meter back to consumers. So
Can't meter back.
that's what I thought he said. We couldn't meter back.
So
to
you
them.
can only meter up to a certain amount.
Yeah, it's
to
capped.
consumers per
Or the
Oh,
consumer's
okay,
capped
so
what
we're
they can
metering
buy.
back. Okay, all right. Okay. Well,
You can't store, I mean, there's a lot of people in the home, they'll let you, if you do, this one produce more, they'll give you credit on that. I don't know if they'll do that. But
There's
that's-
got to be a reason why they'll just be 10 or 15 years. No, we're done. It's because something they're not making money
Because on their
anymore.
books,
Their
it's
money.
it's depreciation.
Yeah, but it could also be that
Yeah.
they're not.
That's figured out.
Yeah, I'm just
They've
skeptical.
made their money and that's that. So
Oh, they're leaving you with something
So
that's going to have a very
I
short
think
life.
it sounds like we're agreeing that we want to keep having Mike look at this and
Yeah.
whittle it down, right? And find out this information.
Yeah, I think we need to get a plan, and then we'll need to get other companies involved. There's lots of.
Once things, the snow melts and stuff, I'd like, Tom and I talked about this, go up to Bellevue.
Yeah.
And take a look at theirs, because I know the guy, the financial manager there, who's also the facilities manager and all that. And, he'll walk us through and take us a look and we can ask some more questions.
And it's fairly new, so you probably can't find schools that have or somebody that's done it.
There's a lot of them.
I mean, Onset has like.
But-
Onset
Yeah, but
has,
how, but they're fairly new. I mean, it's not like this
Myron,
was happening
he's
30 years ago or
talking
20
to
years.
Myron now.
So we could talk to the Onset people. They have them. They're up and running.
And how long have they had it?
Couple, 3 years.
Cause theirs is all ground.
It's all on the ground.
Yeah, and I guess that's not the way to go, but.
Well, and then I'm hearing a lady that was saying that, was telling me that it can decrease your, well, actually, she didn't tell me. I was reading an article about it from a professor that it can decrease, if it's on the ground, it can decrease your property value for people that are close to 15 to 30%.
Well, you have to maintain that. It's on the ground, it's on the roof. So you have to have a fence around it for one.
Yeah.
And then you have to
We don't have the
maintain all that. property,
We don't want it on the ground.
No.
And that's probably not something.
No.
The decrease in property value comes from the people that live next to it, not the people.
That's what I just said.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
People that live
They're
around
putting
in
one
that
on
area.
Hendershot.
They did.
They already have
They
one
did.
on
There is one on
Hendershot.
Hendershot.
They're moving them to North Hendershot now.
South Hendershot.
I got one. My neighbor's got one.
Gonna do it in Macon too.
Have you been south on Hendershot, south of 50, and saw that solar farm down there? It's about 30 acres.
Is it the new one they just,
South
in
of-
Macon?
No,
No,
on
that's not
Hendershot,
up yet.
South, it's in Raging Township, south of,
Oh, no, I have not.
Other
I've
than
not,
your road.
no, I live on the north side.
right, the other, there's one down there.
I know what they look like. They're not so pretty. But on a roof, I'd be okay with that.
All right, so I guess as a board, we're saying, continue. We're asking the Building and Grounds Committee to monitor and work with them on this, correct? Anything else?
Thanks, Mike.
Right.
All right, action items. Bond resolution language.
I hereby move to adopt a resolution calling for a school board election on May 3rd, 2022, as presented to the TPS Board of Education.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the bond language we've received. Roll call vote, trustee Tomlin,
Aye.
trustee Simpson,
Aye.
trustee Moore,
Aye.
trustee Lewis,
Aye.
trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We adopt that language. Motion passes. Terms of condition of facility usage.
I hereby move to approve the updated terms and condition of facility usage agreement as presented by the maintenance department.
Second.
So this is the first, I mean, we're just seeing this, the new verbiage, right, today?
Well, it was in your packet.
This will be
Right.
an opportunity to have some discussion.
Right, so I guess that, no, I mean, lots of things we've already, we discussed this, we tabled it, waiting on the new language. So I think we should, I feel like we should open up if there's any.
Have one with some comparison that was gathered from different schools in our region. And some of them had comparable cost items in some areas. There wasn't anything comparable. And then the second one that you have is called the proposed facility cost chart. So that would be the one that you would be adopting tonight. That has updated dollar values for the things that we typically rent. And then categories of the groups of people that we rent to. So Tom is here. And so any questions that you might have about where these numbers came from, we can try to answer those.
It seemed to me like, I mean, we were this much or higher on all of our categories. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's not like, I don't know, are we getting lots of rentals?
Oopsters. Right, Mary?
Oopsters.
You typically
That's
rent gym
us.
space,
Yeah. It's mainly gym space,
Yep.
right?
mainly gym space. Every once in a while, you get a request for
Somebody having a graduation party.
cafeteria or, yeah, we had grad parties in the middle school. Not a lot of classroom space. So it's primarily the gyms and cafeterias.
I mean, is this a major increase from current? Yeah. Like on average,
Yes,
is
this
this
is
an increase and how much?
That's good.
Increase in the charge fee, the fee.
No, we decreased in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
Increased in so many areas. One was configured in the pool.
Which one?
We also added the lifeguards. So the requirement for lifeguards. Patrons. So yeah, we did that on Sarah. So one of the things that we had looked into is we looked into the surrounding areas, those that reduce those. And then we just got all on the website. We don't put ours out. The other thing that we did was I reached out to MSBO facilities and our discussion forums that we have. Reached out to them and how they looked at how they came up with that knowledge. So put all that together. It made sense. One of the guys had made a comment that we kind of want to balance that idea of, making it really, really low and people just draining a lot versus making it great. It's really those balance there. Considerations of custodians, costs, have been there, based a lot of this on just people that are occupancy of how many people are there. So to make it easier, we had a group of 100 people versus 1,000, right? So,
I mean, I think from a gym perspective, we're full all the time anyway. So if we've actually reduced some of our fees, we're not damaging the community with this new fee schedule.
Yeah, but we're charging, and like the high school gym, 80 to 300, fitness 40 per hour, picnic's 45, Chelsea's 45 to 100, so we're charging more. Pardon me? But, so,
A lot more time to clean our gym than Clinton's gym too.
Right.
no, I get it.
And lights.
Bigger facility.
Does anybody have any other questions about the, again, the changes were highlighted in yellow. I ran through them. I don't have anything.
So Tom and Rick are okay with the prices.
All right. All right, well then, it's been moved and seconded to approve the fees and the terms and conditions. So I guess we'll go for a roll call vote. Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Moore?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Tomlin?
Aye.
Trustee Brooks? Chair votes aye. The rates and terms and conditions are approved.
I hereby move to approve with thanks the $500 donation from Kiwanis of Tecumseh for Philip Clark and Patterson for birthday books.
Second.
We moved and seconded to accept the donation from Kiwanis. Roll call vote. Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Moore?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Brooks?
Aye.
Trustee Tomlin?
Aye.
Chair votes aye with thanks to the Kiwanis and to the teachers who are doing such a great thing for our students. All right, I think that's all the action items. Move on to the consent agenda.
I hereby move to approve the consent agenda, which includes the following items: minutes from the regular board meeting of January 24th, 2022, and minutes from the joint workshop with the City Council of Tecumseh and the TPS Board of Education on January 31st, 2022.
Support.
Move and second to accept the consent agenda. Roll call vote. Trustee Moore?
Aye.
Trustee Simpson?
Aye.
Trustee Tomlin?
Aye.
Trustee Brooks?
Aye.
Trustee Davis?
Aye.
Trustee Lewis?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. All right. Superintendents report, Mr. Hilderly.
Just a strategic planning update. The board's aware that about a month ago, was it 3 weeks ago maybe? We met in a group of about 40 to develop the goals for the district along with the mission, vision, and belief statements. Today, we met with what's called the implementation team, with members of the administration and the directors to talk about the how of how we want to try to get to those goals. So today's progress that was made involved the strategies and the timing of the first year of that 5-year plan. The next step is that the facilitators are going to combine that information and they'll debrief it with me, and then we'll put it in a form for the board. I gave them our meeting schedule for the next 3 meetings, the 28th of February, the 14th and 28th of March, for a time for them to come back and represent the plan and the implementation strategies to the board. I don't think, given what other projects they're working on, that they'll be prepared by the 28th of February. I do think that they'll be prepared by the 14th of March. However, they're both out of town. One is in Mexico and the other one's in Florida. So they would like to do it, but they would like to have their presentation be virtual. So they'll make the presentation to us through a Zoom link, and that'll be the night that the board is able to vote on. So I'm sure that they'll have a
We can't do it from the beach. That's
wonderful
not fair.
background. The work that we did today was similar. You came away with it similar that we did with the strategic plan. We were excited about some of the opportunities, but it's a lot of work. Just developing the details of how we want to try to prioritize the items that need to get done. This group of people and my directors, you kind of have to pull back on the reins a little bit because they want to solve the 5-year plan in a year. And you have to try to remember that the idea is to make progress and be methodical. You don't have all the resources in 1 year to do what you'd like to do over 5. So we will make progress, and we'll be reporting soon on what that is. I know that some of you have asked me, how are the belief statements worded again? So I have all that information now in a form that is shareable. So we'll get that information to you so that you can see the progress that was made. Basically the notes from the session that we did with the community group, and then I'll follow that up with the details of what happened today with the implementation team. So the goal is that the first reporting quarter will begin in April, so it'll be the April, May, June period, and then there'll be another quarter and so on and so forth. So each quarter, the board will have a report for the first year. There'll be hopefully a bit of a celebration at the end of the first year, and then another implementation meeting to talk about what needs to be done in year 2 and so on. So very methodical, a very detailed process. So like I said, I'll share the notes from the strategic planning meeting, and then when we're ready, we'll get the other notes from today. And then shooting for the 14th of March for the board to approve the plan.
Okay. Any questions? Thanks, Rick. All right, item scheduled for next agenda. Of course, as always, good news, discussion items. that may come up, and then as far as action items, we will need to take action on the MASB board of directors. I don't know of anything off the top of my head that'll be on there. I don't see anything we've discussed that's, we won't be ready with solar, so that's the plan. I guess next will be closing public comment. I know we had an individual, but I think he left, yeah. So is there anybody other public comment?
For the board?
No, not yet. We'll get there. No public comment. All right, board member comment.
All right, we need to have our committee meetings on the calendar. They're not there right now. So those I don't care if we just assign them to like first Wednesday is budget, whatever we do. So they can always be canceled, but if they're on there, then we know we've got a meeting and we can kind of get it, if we don't have anything to discuss like last time, we'll just cancel it, but.
I've asked that before. I would request that with every board packet, maybe we keep a running calendar that's, can't always be 100% accurate with the changes because of the weather, but all committee meetings should be on there, or the presentations, the quarterly ones, on the strategic planning, just like a running calendar that we keep active. There's one calendar for all of us. You created one?
So if you go
You're
to
ahead of the
the,
game then.
if you go to the, to Gmail, there's a calendar there. Are these dates not on there?
They weren't when I looked last Friday.
We're missing. I think they probably just expired. So it might just be a need to.
Well, I think, I don't know who just said it, but, I mean, I think we ought to say, budget committee meets on
The
first Wednesday.
Right.
The building grounds is the second, and then, whatever, I mean, we should
Then that
just,
can all be put on a calendar so that we can see the whole year's plan. And it can change.
Right. And it's easy
it
to
doesn't work
say,
that way.
the problem with it is, we're all busy, and occasionally that first Wednesday gets away from me. Rick just sent me a
Well, make
message
it
the
the
other
third
day,
Wednesday.
he says, do you wanna, cancel, we got nothing to talk about, I'm like, oh my God, it's that time of week. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just a reminder.
It's just nice to have that in your face reminder for that little extra thing,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's the first Wednesday, and I do try to put.
Well, if you want to make it the third,
It wouldn't matter.
Okay.
I'm just, in general, those of us that aren't retired, sometimes we have a few more things going on.
Right now, the committee
I did not feel
structure,
retired.
You were
Just
not
wanna tell you
retired.
that right
the
now.
committee structure document for each of the committees says meeting dates are quarterly or as needed. So if we want to move away from that and make them monthly,
I think that's what we've been
and
doing.
put them on the calendar.
I would.
We can do
And then
that.
they can be canceled.
I think budget and facilities were running monthly.
I think curriculum has been too.
Yeah,
I think
recently.
that we
Yeah.
like to have that monthly.
But I mean, I have them on my personal calendar, and then I ask Rick, do we need to have a meeting or not?
all right,
And then I
so
just
is this
take
an
it
act,
off.
something, that,
We'll update the calendar so that
I did,
it is monthly, one per Wednesday. And then I will communicate with the chair of that committee prior to the meeting and decide if the meeting needs to be held. or not.
Right.
all right,
Where's this calendar at?
on Google, it's on your email, Google email,
There's
Yeah, but
this
I
little
have lots of
31 on
Google
the
calendars. I don't
Right.
see it
That's the
coming up.
calendar.
pardon me?
Oh, that's it?
I don't
Yeah.
see it coming
No,
up.
it's not there, we need to get it added, that's the point.
I think they just,
Yeah, but that's.
I
I
think
think
in
they
attachments,
just
just as
expired.
easy. Like
They
that
were out
says
there at
right
one
They
at the
were,
time.
they were out there through December.
Probably New Year.
Yeah.
Dropped off.
All my
It is.
other-
So we should be able to
Everyone
get in there.
shares-
We're just
shares
all
with
through.
something, right?
Like
I
all
have
my other
something for
repeat
board.
Okay, is it to do with these meetings? Does
No.
that- Okay, then I'm gonna make a comment on that, then we'll get there, okay?
Okay.
I sent out late this afternoon the committee structure for this year. I apologize, I didn't copy you, but basically the committee structure is the same. It's the same, there's no changes, no change in, chairs, no change in that. So I did send it to them, and I realized I didn't copy you on it, but I will, but it's the same. All right,
I have two things. It is National Counseling Week, so I would like to compliment the fact that while we may be down two counselors, we have some phenomenal counselors here. We have Debbie Laney for the 3rd and 4th grade, who does some amazing things. We have Deb Fowle at the middle school. We have Jamie Cole and Jen Morgan, and I think if you see them this week or you take time to send them an email, one should, because they are an integral part of our school. And the other thing I want to say is, I didn't get to the descendants, but I did get to Les Miserables, and I could not believe the talent, and I would say a high percentage of Tecumseh students. Some of our students left to go to another school, but I still feel that they're a Tecumseh student. There were quite a few, and they were good. I'm sure the Descendants was a good performance too, but that speaks well for our community, I think.
I'd like to thank the administrators for all the data. I've been crying about data for a long time, and now I can quit crying. And I really look forward to this.
She will take it in any form you give it.
The verbiage one is hard.
But you'll take it.
I'll take it for now.
It's better than doing that.
Exactly. It's better than a goose egg. So I really appreciate that. And I think we can really track where we're going and make improvements. And
We have a
I mean,
starting.
yeah. And then we're going to have some bragging rights.
Anybody else? I don't have
Whoa.
anything. So, all right, last call for board comments. Thanks, everyone. All right, so we now move to, we'll move to closed session. So for a superintendent evaluation, so I'll accept a motion for that.
Move to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Public Act 267, 1972, Section 8H, to consider material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state or federal statute pertaining to superintendent evaluation.
Second.
Moved and seconded to move to closed session for superintendent evaluation. Roll call vote, trustee Brooks,
Aye.
trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee Lewis,
Aye.
trustee Moore,
Aye.
trustee Simpson,
Aye.
trustee Tomlin.
Hi.
Chair votes aye. It is 5:56 and we are going to close session. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
too fast. Are we on? All right, we are coming out of closed session. It is 9:00. Can I get a motion to come out of closed session?
I make a motion to come out of closed session.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded to come out of closed session. Roll call vote, trustee Tomlin,
Aye.
trustee Simpson,
Aye.
trustee Moore,
Aye.
trustee Lewis,
Aye.
trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Do we have an action item that we need to discuss out of the closed session?
I make a motion that we table the item for closed session until our March 14th meeting.
Starting time,
March 14th.
March 14th.
Oh, and prior to the meeting.
Well, we will announce the official time, I guess, but it'll be prior to the meeting on March 14th.
Let's confirm, but I think we have to have an open meeting go into closed session, so just make sure.
Yeah.
No, you'll have to start the meeting and then go to, just like we did here at the end.
Exactly.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We move and seconded to table the superintendent evaluation and do it on March 14th before then start the meeting early.
Before the schedule.
Start the meeting early, then at 7:00 we'll have the rest of the meeting. So, roll call vote, trustee Tomlin,
Aye.
trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Moore,
Aye.
trustee Lewis,
Aye.
trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee Brooks, chair votes aye.
Aye.
So we have tabled with that, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to
Third.
adjourn.
Quick straw.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same sign.